Hello everyone, welcome to ITIS 6200/8200. This is going to be for the graduate school at UNCC. So basically what this class is going to be is an introduction to basic concepts of principles of information security. So the reason for this class is to introduce those that are entering the IT field to either do one of two things. Either IT security is your preference, that's the direction you want to head into, that's your goal, or it's some other related field like web application development, databases, whatever your interest might be, and to introduce you to typical concepts that we in information security really focus on. And it just basically to have something in the back of your head to say, you know what, I'm developing this web application. I need to be cognizant, I need to be aware of the types of things that attackers may try to take advantage of in order to exploit my application, and I need to code my web application correctly. So even if information security is not your primary focus, it's always good to have these things in mind. For instance, case in point, think of it like this. Think of a police department, or think of a police department, or think of it more like this: a guard that works for a city. Think about a large round city, and they've got a huge wall, and you've got to have guards on the outside. So think about it like this: so you've got guards on the outside. Their primary focus is security. Okay, but there's other people that live in the city. There's people that sell things, and there's carpenters and stuff like that. They do tons of different things. But yeah, sure, they always need to be aware of security. They need to be cognizant of it. Need to make sure that they're safe. So think of it like that. Police department, their primary focus is security. Now, an average citizen, do they have to be thinking of security, all the time? But it needs to be in the back of their head. They don't need to be walking by themselves at night. They don't need to be carrying large amounts of cash in their pocket. They might get robbed. They don't need to leave their doors unlocked. Trying to be aware of security. So think of it like that. Whether you're a database administrator, or you're a web developer, or you're networking, whatever it may be, you need to be cognizant of security, and that's what this class is designed to do. Now, to kind of expound on that a little bit more, think of it like this. We as individuals in information security, sometimes we can be so focused on security that we want to harden everything. But when it comes to all things, there needs to be a delicate balance when it comes to security, because there are certain things that, as a security professional, I want all doors locked. I want everything. I want walls, to go really, really high. I want guards everywhere. Well, that's not always practical. So there has to be a delicate balance in between security. So those of you that are going into information security, just be cognizant, aware of that. It can't always be exactly the way you want it. You can try to put layers, and again, this is something we're going to use over the course of the semester, is layers of security. There is no end-all security device, mechanism, whatever there may be, that's going to offer you complete security. Going back to the wall analogy, think of it like this. You have a wall, but then you have metal gates with spikes on them, and then you have guards posted there. So you have 3 different layers of security. So think of it like that. So you have an attacker or a thief. He comes to the city and he sees, oh well, look at those guards. Those guys are huge, and those walls are really high, and that gate looks tough. You know what? There's a city on down the street. I think I'll go break into them. So he's going to go for the path of least resistance. So think of it like that. When it comes to information security, you have to have those layers in place. There is no end-all when it comes to security. It's going to do everything. But you want to make it tough enough to where the attacker goes, you know what, I'm going to hit these guys on down the street. So think of it like that. So that's what this class is going to entail. As far as myself is concerned, I'm kind of going to be your guide throughout the rest of the semester, kind of introduce you to concepts. If you think, hey, you know what, this is a really interesting idea, concept, I want to dig a little deeper, go for it. That's what college is. And in my own personal opinion, bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctorate, whatever it may be, whatever you're going for, is to introduce you to a concept that you might not have been aware of before. to look at something a little deeper, you're going to have to do your own research, you take your own time and dig a little deeper into that if you find that idea interesting. I cannot cover everything. There is so many different things when it comes to information security. Anything from social engineering, external perimeter, internal perimeter, web application, phone security. There's so many different things, and in each one of those categories, you're going to have tons of different applications that have different vulnerabilities. So there's so much to cover. So we're not going to be able to cover everything, but we are going to be introduced to things. In addition to this class, each week, so after I post this video, there will be the next week. There will be a quiz. Usually it's about 5 questions, nothing real complicated, but it will include the slides that we're going to go through, as well as the questions could be from something I said. So to kind of allow you to look at the videos, look at the slides, and then next week you're going to take a quick quiz. All right. In addition to that quiz, I'm going to try to introduce 4 different hands-on activities. So those hands-on activities are going to be follow these directions, do this, and for instance, if you're not familiar with Kali Linux, Kali Linux is a virtual machine. And those of you that have, hopefully by now, if you're in the master's program, 6200 or 8200, obviously, you've been introduced to a lot of different concepts. I'm hoping that you know what a virtual machine is. If you don't, no big deal. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'll help you as much as possible. This class is not trying to make you feel inadequate. I want to help everybody understand information security as much as possible. If you have a question, if you have a concern, please feel free to email me. But what I would like everyone to do, there is a Kali virtual machine. It's a Linux virtual machine. If you Google Kali VM offensive security, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a link to the VM on Canvas so that you can actually go out there and download it. So I want you to do is download that, go ahead and get that set up, and then what I'm going to do is, it should be 4. I'm thinking it's going to be 4. I'm going to post a exploitable virtual machine. So what I'll have you do is do a series of tasks, and there will be a flag, and it'll have a word in it, and that word will be used in a quiz. So something a little different. It's not just asking questions, but get your hands on something, introduce you to a concept, help you to understand why information security is so important. So there'll be a quiz every week, something short, something sweet, not really complicated. There'll be about 4 hands-on activities. That alone, your hands-on activities and your quizzes will account for 60% of your grade. The midterm and the final is only going to be 20% apiece. So I'm telling you, if you do your quizzes and you do your hands-on activities and you score 100 on all these things, you're already going to be doing fantastic in this class. Okay, the midterm and the final, I'm not exactly sure yet. I need to set with the registrar's office. I think in the midterm and the final are going to be on campus. It's possible the midterm will be online. I'm not sure yet. Please don't bombard me with a bunch of emails asking me, if I've made a decision about the midterm yet. I don't know yet. So just be patient with me. I need to talk to the registrar's office first, but as soon as I hear something, I will post it on Canvas. And most everything's going to be let me take that back. Everything will be posted on Canvas. All right. No matter what, anytime I have an announcement or something's going on, I will post it on Canvas. I'll let you know what's going on as quickly as possible, so don't worry. As far as office hours, so I've already got some questions about office hours already. I don't know yet. I'm going to pick one day out of the week, maybe 2 hours in the evening is what it's going to be. If you absolutely need some time to sit down with me and talk about it and say, Professor Kerr, I have a question. I really need to sit down and talk with you. I don't understand this. I want to understand this. Fantastic. I will make time for you. I'll have some regular hours that I will be on campus. Please email me and make an appointment before you come. So if nobody emails me and tells me, hey, Professor Kerr, I may be wandering around campus or something like that, but I will be there. But say, Professor Kerr, I really need to talk to you. I have a couple of questions. I have a couple of concerns. Can you please meet me? Yep, I'll be there. Give me a couple minutes. I'll walk over there real quick. But if nobody sets up an appointment, I probably won't be there. So the time, date, and place where I will have those office hours, I will get back to you and let you know. So don't worry about that. If you are going through the class and you are struggling with your grade, I don't know, you're just not able to, doing well in the quizzes, in the hands-on activities, which I can't understand. If you're watching the videos and you watch the slides, you are going to pass these quizzes. If you follow my directions in the hands-on activities, you will find the flag and you will pass. You will pass all those quizzes and you will pass all those hands-on activities. And we get to the midterm and the final, and you just die in the midterm and final. It's horrendous. You can't. If you get everything wrong, I will take your quizzes and your hands-on activities into account if you're close, you're right there on the line in between, as far as your grading is concerned. I will take that into account and say, hey, look, you know what? He bombed or she bombed the midterm and the final. I'll give you those extra points. So don't worry about it. All right. If there's no other questions, obviously you can ask me at this time. But if you do, please feel free to email me. Let's go ahead and jump right into the slides, and let's kind of go over this. All right. So hacking has become every American's worst nightmare. These are some percentages of Americans who frequently or occasionally worry about the following. So 69% of people worry about having their credit card information stolen by hackers. 62% having computer smartphone hacked or information stolen. And then you see some pretty common stuff, having your car stolen, your home burglarized, school-age children physically harmed, getting mugged. So think about it. More people worry about having their credit card information stolen or their smartphones hacked. And there are so many daily. You're hearing anything from this past election. You hear about, controversies in regards to hacking, Russia. So you have government-led hacking. You have corporate espionage. The Yahoo, all those credentials that were compromised, and some little older stuff like Lowe's, Target, a couple others. Hacking is part of our life. It happens. And why does hacking occur? So to give you a little understanding of where I come from, and so I can kind of understand the hacking mentality. My current position right now is I work for a private firm, and companies hire us to hack them. They do this on purpose. It's called penetration testing, if anyone doesn't know, or pen testing for short. Basically, we are authorized hackers. We have different ways that we try to either attack from the internet to the inside. We're on the inside and we're trying to take advantage of vulnerabilities. We try social engineering. We try physical penetration. We try web application testing. We try phone testing. We try just tons of different ways for us to attempt to compromise a network. So this is what we do so that we can provide some information to the clients. Hey, look, these are your weaknesses. These are your risks, and you're going to hear that word a lot over the course of the testing. You're vulnerable to this. These are the threats to that vulnerability. This is the risk if you don't get this fixed, but this is how to fix it. So this is what I do on a daily basis. To kind of give you a background, a little bit about myself. Before that, I did some networking in the financial district. I did some networking for a nuclear research company. I did some forensics in law enforcement. So I have a wide range of different experience, and as of right now, my job is to hack. So this is what people worry about. This is what people are concerned about. This is in the news every day. Something. And the thing is, this is only going to continue to be a problem for the rest of our lives now that we're so reliant on computerization. And with globalization, we don't have to just worry about the people within our country. We have to worry about people from other countries, country against country. I mean, it's the search for information. Trying to keep information, and this is going to be three big buzzwords: trying to keep things confidential, trying to keep things keep the integrity of that confidential information, and trying to keep it available. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Please remember that. So these are things that that we're facing. Every person on this planet is facing these types of challenges. I don't care if you're from the United States or from Russia or from India or from China, wherever it may be. These are questions that you need to be asking yourself as you continue to work not only in IT, but it's just as a private citizen. How do you keep your things secure? Going back to the analogy about the city, how do we keep? And again, this is just kind of help you understand this. How do we keep our city protected? How do we keep ourselves, our home, our office, our cars these days? Since they're becoming smart cars, how do we keep our cell phones protected? So these are things that we always need to be aware of. So let's talk about the objectives of this course. You need to understand some. It would really help some basic security concepts. That's what I want you to understand over the course of this class. Some basic security technologies. We're going to go over some security topics, how security can fit in real-world systems, and try to encourage you to use best security practices. These are the things, again, if IT security is not going to be your field, let's say you walk out here tomorrow and you never want to deal with IT ever again. As a private citizen, try to offer you some ideas and thoughts to be cognizant, some best security practices. Just like law enforcement will try to tell you, hey, look, it's not a good idea for you to be walking down the street late at night by yourself. You need to travel in groups. It's safer. It's a basic best security practice. This is physical security, obviously, but we're going to talk about IT security. Now, there's something unique about me. I worked in law enforcement. I was a police officer. So not only was I introduced to physical security, I had to be aware of physical security, but I also have to be aware of IT security because that is my field of study. And again, that's what I'm in now. I've already left law enforcement, but that's always in the back of my head. So, and physical security definitely has its place in IT, but we'll expound upon that and move along that as we kind of go along here. A couple of web resources. SANS Institute, NIST is always good. There's always great articles. RSA, obviously. If you really want to start digging in, especially SANS, these days, SANS, if anybody doesn't know what SANS is, it's a great learning center, fantastic certifications. If you can acquire a SANS certification, that's top notch. I'll try to add a few little things like that throughout. As you're going out in the field, you're trying to get a job, and specifically IT security. If you want a top-notch security certificate from something that's going to blow employers away, SANS certificate is fantastic. I highly recommend you try to get one if you're going into IT security. They're just top-notch. They're a little pricey. I think if you want to bypass the course is usually like $5,000 or something. But if you just want to take the test, it's like $900. Now you can get the study materials. There's tons of stuff online that you can try to find and try to pass the course. But I mean, it's just a fantastic certification. I'll try to throw that kind of stuff out there as much as I possibly can as far as real world scenarios and what my recommendations are. Okay. Here's the thing. These are some useful background things that I would hope that most of everybody would have by now. Again, since you're going into the graduate program for information security, I would hope you would have this type of stuff. But if you don't, it's no big deal. If you have a concern, again, please feel free to reach out to me. Don't feel inadequate. Don't feel like you have no help. I will try my best to try to help you as much as I possibly can if you do not understand a particular concept. But what I would like to see is hopefully you would have a general knowledge of TCP/IP, web, some knowledge about operating systems, especially experience when it comes to Linux, when it comes to Mac, when it comes to Windows. I would hope we're not. I had kind of gone back and forth about doing a project when it comes to programming. I think I'm going to bypass that altogether. I don't think I'm going to do that. But as you're going into IT security, and you're not real good in programming, obviously I think at this point, in order to get into the program, you have to have C as well as, I think, was it Java that I think everybody had to take in order to get into the graduate school, if I'm not mistaken. But But another huge one I highly, highly, highly recommend. Well, actually, I'm going to take that back. Two that I highly recommend is Bash scripting, as well as Python. Python's huge in IT security. I highly recommend that. Trying to tackle some of that. So yeah, and some mathematics. Obviously, when it comes to IT security, you have to be able to do some calculations in your head. But it's not the end all. If you don't understand all these concepts and you still feel like you're kind of weak on some of them, don't worry. If you're struggling, I will help you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about threats, vulnerabilities, and risks. And again, we're going to expound upon all this as we move along throughout the course of the semester. But threats, vulnerabilities, and risks, these are the types of things that I talk about with every client that I encounter. Any client that I do testing for, we try to look at, okay, these are your vulnerabilities. This is where you're weak. Okay, this is what we're seeing. So if let's go back to the analogy of the city wall with the gates. You know what? You've got some holes in your city wall here. You got the structure's weak. You've got some concrete missing here. Your gate's kind of hanging off there. Your guards are not really trained very well. They're asleep most of the time. On the inside of your city, nobody locks their doors. People are when they're selling goods, they're keeping money out. And again, this is an analogy. Thinking about a network. So think of it like that. And I'll try to do my best to try to use that analogy because it kind of helps things put in perspective. So vulnerabilities, weaknesses that may be exploited. So that's what I'm talking about. Threats, possible attacks on the system. So what are the types of attacks that someone could conduct using that vulnerability? Okay, so all right, let's go back to our analogy of the city wall. Well, there are holes in your wall around your city. Well, some of those walls are small enough to where somebody could climb through. So think of it like that. Or you know what? Your walls are so weak around the gates that somebody took a sledgehammer and started knocking down concrete and stuff. They could prevent anybody from getting into your city, which is called a denial of service. All right, so what are the risks? Is a measure of the possibility of security breaches and severity of the ensuing damage. So let's say someone took advantage of there was a threat, someone took advantage of a vulnerability, and the risk was, well, okay, if you cause a denial of service, if you start breaking down concrete and it blocks my gates, you're causing a denial of service, okay? People can't come in and out of the city. What's the risk? Well, people can't get out. People can't access the outside world, or the outside world can't access the inside. So basically think about it like this. So you have a company that relies on, let's take Amazon.com. Now, this would be highly unlikely, but let's just say you were able to bring down all of Amazon. What's the risk of causing a denial of service? If you cause a denial of service for Amazon, think about the billions of dollars that they would lose with their service down. So what's the risk? Well, financial. It's huge. They would lose tons of money. So when I'm doing a test of a particular company, I'll look at the vulnerabilities that I'm seeing. I will say, hey, look, you're vulnerable to this type of threat. If you don't do this, if you don't fix this, the risk to your company is this. After I show the risk, then I'll say, all right, in order to mitigate that, in order to fix the problem, this is what you need to do. Okay? So just kind of give you an understanding of that's what security is. And you can apply this to so many different things. If there's a web application that's not configured correctly, hey, the vulnerability is this is not coded correctly. Because it's not coded correctly, it's vulnerable to a denial of service. Someone can bring down the website. If someone brings down the website, the risk is that you could lose money. All right, because it's not coded correctly, this is how you fix that problem. Okay? All right, so a couple of things. And again, this is a little bit old, but I kind of wanted to bring this up. So as we're starting to move into the types of vulnerabilities, the types of threats that we're going to kind of discuss over the course of the semester. This one happened a couple of years ago. So Anonymous intercepted FBI Scotland Yard phone calls. So essentially what this is Anonymous, it was a man-in-the-middle attack, but it was unauthorized interception. They were listening in between the phone calls. And I've done this. This is an actual attack where I will gain access to a phone system with a particular company, and I will sit in between phone conversations and just listen, see if there's anything interesting. Now, the real risk here is if they were talking about, let's say that this person in accounting is talking to someone in human resources, and I'm sitting in between, and they're talking about social security numbers and and this and addresses and stuff like that. Well, I'm just getting that information. So that's the danger here when it comes to unauthorized interception. So think of it like that. And again, all these different things we're going to expound upon over the course of the semester. All right. So unauthorized interception. Okay. So tensions are building up here. Okay. So what are people worried about? What do people want? And what are their concerns? So citizens are concerned about privacy violations. They want to be protected, but at the same time, my privacy. I want to keep myself secure. So there's a delicate balance there. And we talked about this a little earlier in between the citizens and the government. Well, the government's trying to get data collection in order to keep the people safe, but the people are outcrying over their privacy violations. So where's the balance? I'm not a politician, I can't say, but there is one. The government and businesses. So the government wants to get data from these businesses, but in order to get those, they have to have a subpoena. Okay, well, why can't they just have the data? They're trying to protect the citizens, and they're trying to get this data collection, but they can't get the data without a subpoena. Well, they have to have a good reason for that. So then there's a balance there. All right, at what point, is it valid to hand over that data? Is a subpoena sufficient? Do they have to have a subpoena? Is there a way that they can collect that data? What happens. It's a part of our daily life these days. And businesses are trying to win back a trust that has been broken in between citizens. So this is very difficult. Because of the hacking, because of the corporate espionage, because of the constant problems. And you saw the statistics from what people are concerned. They're worried about their credit card information. They're worried about their health information. They're worried about, their photos. People getting into the cloud and stealing their photos. They're concerned about these types of things. So this is, at the utmost part of they're concerned about interception of their private information and it not being protected. But at the same time, there has to be a certain amount of collection to try to keep people safe. So where is the middle ground? I'm not. There is no end all. There has to be an understanding between all parties. All right. So there's also unauthorized modification, unauthorized access and tampering with a resource. So think of it like this. The sending an email or unauthorized modification of information. It goes back to sending an email and hey, this check for services provided needs to be sent to this address. An attacker intercepts that information, which was the first one, modifies the address, and then the check goes to the wrong place. So think of it like that. Fabrication, impersonation, and this kind of goes hand in hand with that last analogy I just made. That person impersonates or fabricates that, hey, this is me, modifies that email, and then is able actually to gain access to financial information, impersonating another person. Causing the denial of service, we kind of hit briefly upon that a little earlier. Causing an interruption of services, Amazon.com was the example that I used for that. So information resources bringing hardware down, software and data deliberately made unavailable, lost, or unusable, usually through malicious destruction. So, sometimes people can get really clever about how to cause a denial of service. If they feel like they're getting a particular website that provides a particular service, if they see a ton of traffic coming from one particular IP address, they'll shut it down. So that's good in a way, but what would happen if the attacker knew this customer, this company? Let's say that you have a gas company or an oil company. Oil company and a car company. So the oil company provides oil for their brand new cars that are coming out, and they need to be able to access the car company's web application, whatever. So what happens is an attacker will go, you know what? I know that this oil company, that they're contacting this car company through this IP address. Here's this IP address over here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spoof. I'm going to pretend to be this IP address and like start sending all these requests. Well, because this car company is set up to go, anytime it sees a whole bunch of requests, it starts blocking that. So the attacker has been smart enough to say, well, what he has done is he has blocked. He has caused a denial of service from the oil company being able to contact the car company. He's caused denial of service just by spoofing their IP address and just sending requests, constant requests over, knowing that the car company is going to block those IPs. Now, it may be temporary. The oil company may call, hey, I can't get through. I don't know what's going on. It may be temporary, but still, most companies do so many transactions. Even the loss, of several hours can be hundreds of thousands or sometimes even millions of dollars. So something to think about. Here's a man-in-the-middle attack, and again, we're going to be talking about Alice and Bob all the time. So, hey, Alice is, here's the city wall here. Alice, is here trying to get in, and here's Bob, and there's always going to be an attacker. Usually it's Eve. You'll see that constantly used. So, all right, so here's a couple of intrusion scenarios. So what are we worried about here? What types of attacks are we concerned about? What kind of people are we looking for? Well, so this one here is an insider attack. So you're talking about and this is, a constant thing that I do. Not only do you have to worry about people from the outside trying to get into your network or somebody from outside your city wall trying to get in, you got to worry about the people on the inside. So these people are already authorized users. These are already people living in your little city. Think of it like that. You got a big round wall with 2 gates on either side, or you may have 10 gates or whatever. You're trying to keep that protected. But at the same time, you got to worry about the people that live inside your city. You got to think about people that live inside your network. So insider acquires privileged access. So you think about it like this: you're a regular user, and you try to exploit a vulnerability to gain administrator access. It can be done. I've done it many, many, many times. It can be done easily. Trust me. Exploiting bugs in privileged system programs, exploiting poorly configured privileges, and this is exactly what I do. I take advantage of these types of things, and I'm able to get administrative access, and as soon as I have administrative access, I can get into everything. All networks should look at things as far as providing access least privilege. It should be across the board. Only be able to access what you have to access, no more than that. They try to install backdoors, Trojans, horses to facilitate subsequent acquisition of privileged access. So this is exactly what I do. I'll be able to gain access as a regular user, elevate my privileges to an administrator, and then try to gain access to personal information. Like, for instance, case in point, I'll gain access to a regular user's workstation. I'll escalate to an administrator or somebody within another department. I'm a mechanic, and I gain access to somebody in HR, and then at that point I'm able to access social security numbers and bank account information for direct deposit and all kinds of good stuff like that. So this is absolutely huge. Intrusion scenario 2, so you have to worry about outsiders. Acquire access to an unauthorized account, perpetrate an insider attack. So how does this happen? So here's your city wall, here are your gates, here are your guards, okay? So they're trying to get into the city as an unauthorized user. Well, they dress up like someone, or they have identification from somebody else. Well, this is me. Hey, I'm authorized to be here. Okay, have a nice day. Go ahead. Okay? And the way I typically do that is use something like social engineering. Social engineering is absolutely probably one of the best ways to break in. There are other ways. There's always a vulnerability on an outside-facing server. So think about it like this. Some people take advantage of a web application or an email server or something that's facing the outside that's been misconfigured or has a vulnerability or something like that. But social engineering is huge. Social engineering is one of those things to where I'll call a company, I'll spoof my IP address or my phone number or something like that, and then I'll spoof a website that looks just like theirs. And I'll say, hey, listen, this is such and such from the IT department. We're putting up a new portal. If you could just log into the portal real quick, and I'll spoof my email address and send one over, and they'll look at it and go, oh, okay. Click on it. They'll go to the link. I'm sure everybody has gotten the emails before about PayPal or bank, your bank or whatever, and they said, oh, hey, so your account's been compromised. Please log in. You'll click on a link. It'll take you over to another website, and then you log in, which you just basically gave them your credentials, and then they'll be able to log in as well. So these are the types of attacks you have to worry about from the outside, either vulnerability or social engineering. But so these days, a lot of people have a virtual private network, and if anybody doesn't know what that is, a virtual private network is set up within the company. It allows you to work from home, or let's say you're working on something, you need to access files, folders, different types of equipment that is not on the outside of your wall. Okay, so what you need to do is you will you'll send a tunnel. Basically, you'll have a username and password, and you log in, and you're able to tunnel through the wall, your firewall, tunnel through the wall to be able to access those resources on the inside of your network or the inside of your town. Think of it like that. So what an attacker will do is, using social engineering, getting someone to give up their username and password somehow or another, they will log in using the VPN and be able to access all those resources on the inside of the network. Or they'll log into your email, or be able to access information that way. And there's always something juicy there that I've found that I can exploit and further take advantage of. So an outsider attack, they spoof a network and then distributed system protocols to effectively acquire access to an unauthorized account. This is kind of goes hand in hand with what I was just talking about. Infrastructure attacks, router attacks, modify router configurations, dead serious. This type of thing I see all the time. I've seen logging in from the outside into a router that was exposed to the internet. Admin, not kidding. Cisco. A lot of you that are big Cisco people, you have CCNAs or whatever, that's the default for a Cisco router. I'm telling you, I still see it. I see it all the time. Domain name server DNS attacks. This is something like what you can basically do is if anybody doesn't know what a domain name server is, a DNS server, basically it allows you to, when you go to a website, www.google.com or amazon.com, there is an IP address that's associated with that number. And what these domain name servers do is they keep a record of that, and they say, hey, this IP address of this person has this name, www.google.com. So anytime anybody types in www.google.com, it knows to take you to that specific IP address. So think of it like that. So what will happen is, if there is a type of attack where I can find out what your domain name server, your DNS server, and I can extrapolate all the different machines that are on that. So basically, it doesn't allow me to get into your network, but it allows me to see what types of things you have internet facing. It's that kind of thing. Internet service attacks, websites, FTP archives. People still have FTP open to the internet. And it's FTP, and again, we're going to go over this. FTP and Telnet and HTTP are clear text protocols. What that means is, if someone is using FTP, Telnet, or HTTP, and they're logging into something, first of all, if I'm on that same network, or let's say you're in a coffee shop, you're at the airport, you're somewhere where there's public Wi-Fi, and somebody else is on that same network with you, and you decide, you know what, I need to log into my bank, I need to log into my workplace, and you're using FTP, HTTP, or Telnet, it's in clear text. So first of all, you just logged in with your username and password. If somebody's watching that, they just captured your username and password in the clear. It's not encrypted. As well as the information that's being passed. So those are huge things, but we're going to hit those more in depth as we move along. There's a diversity of attacks on data, hardware, software, service. See, there's some of the most mentioned network terms. You'll hear IP, UDP, TCP, directory services, packet switching, and again, you're going to hear these things. Alice and Bob, you're going to hear all this as we're moving along. So the importance of cybersecurity, increasingly large deployment of network computers. So you're starting to see more stuff out on the internet. Sensitive resources are coming online, personal information, financial services, military, infrastructure. If something's facing the internet, it's out there, folks. So I can highly recommend you try to be more cognizant with your personal information. These days, your medical information is so valuable to an attacker. It's more so than credit card information. Credit card information, if they steal $250, $300, most credit card companies will reimburse that money to you. When it comes to medical information, think about it like this. Someone is actually able to access your medical information, knows you have a particular condition, and files a claim against your insurance company because they have all the information. Here's a really expensive surgical procedure or something. They'll file a claim against it, knowing all your personal information, and cash out like $75,000 or more. Think about how valuable that is as opposed to credit card information. And you know how when it comes to that kind of stuff, sometimes it takes much longer for your insurance company to identify that type of problem. Credit card, you'll notice it. Your credit card company will notice it, and they usually shut the account down. Medical information is so valuable, so please keep that in mind. When it comes to that kind of thing, there's such a large number of users, large amounts of money out there, and people are taking advantage of you, at every turn. So please try to be aware of that. Some characteristics of network security: attacks come from anywhere at any time. Highly automated attacks or script kiddies. These are tools and things that are already coded. There's little scripts that'll run, and it's looking for any type of vulnerability out there. It just kind of throws it out there and sees what it comes back with. So this is why it's important to have layers of security, path of least resistance. They're going to go after those ones that don't have those layers in place. Physical security measures are inadequate. Let me tell you something, folks. Physical security is huge. My firm that I work for, this is one of the big ones that we go after. Physical security. If I can gain access inside of your company, I'm going to find a way to take advantage. People still put their username and passwords on the bottom of their keyboard. They still put it on the bottom of their desk. I gain information. Part of my job is to, when I'm testing physical security of a particular company, I'll start taking laptops, take keys, proxy cards that allow you access. I can copy those. Physical security of a company is very important. So there's a wide variety of applications and services and protocols out there that can be vulnerable when it comes to network security. If there's no single authority administrator, again, having a lot of people with a lot of administrative access, least privilege needs to be so important when it comes to network security. We talked about this: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality, only authorized people can see protected data. Trying to keep that stuff, tight-lipped. Certain administrators, you need to have that stuff segmented, and you're going to hear me talk about that. We have something that's called a flat network. Everybody in HR can access everything in accounting. Everybody in accounting and HR can access everything in at the police department, if it's UNCC or something like that. So having those departments segmented, and only people within that segment can actually authorize and use those systems. So you want to prevent, detect, and deter improper disclosure of information. So keeping all that stuff confidential. So what do we mean by securing communication? So a lot of times, encryption, we'll often use Alice and Bob. Alice is on vacation and wants to send a command to her assistant Bob, or just a computer to control the nuclear power plant. How can she do that? How can she send a message to him that will be protected, that will be kept confidential in order to run this, this nuclear power plant? Or, obviously this is an extreme case, but how can she keep that communication secure? So there's eavesdroppers that can listen to communication channels. So what are we doing? How do we protect that? Information needs to be forwarded through packet switches, and these switches can be reprogrammed to listen or to modify data in transit. And there's other ways to do that. Oh, by the way, the bonus word of the week, UDP. UDP. All right, is it hopeless for Alice? No, of course not. There's ways to keep information confidential. We need to keep the integrity. We need to find ways to prevent, detect improper modification, precise, accurate, unmodified, modified only in acceptable ways, and modified by authorized subjects, and be consistent. So we talked about that really, what the danger is, what the risk is of modification of a file or modification of an email. So there's definitely things. So again, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Keep that in mind. Availability, prevent, detect improper denial of access to services provided by the system. Timely response, fair allocation. You got to keep your services up and running. You got to keep your people involved. You're like, hey, look, they need to be able to access these websites. They need to be able to access our services, or we lose money. So availability. So it's a tricky thing, trying to keep that stuff confidential, trying to keep it in, the integrity of it secure, but also trying to keep it available for your users. There has to be a delicate balance, so keep that in mind. Achieving security. So how do we achieve the security? We have to have policies in place, we have to have mechanisms in place, and we have to have assurance that it's being protected. So policies, you have computerized information system policies, you have organizational policies. These policies are in place to do what exactly? These are rules and regulations, just like rules and regulations that you out on the street. If you speed, there is a rule, there is a law in place that says if you speed, these are the consequences of your actions. As far as the organization is concerned, you need to have policies and procedures in place that if your people violate these policies and procedures, these are going to be the consequences for their actions. First time it's write-up, second time it's counseling, third time it's termination. In order to keep your company secure, unfortunately, people tend to be the weakest link when it comes to that kind of thing. So those types of things have to be protected. Security mechanisms, prevention, access control, detection and recovery. So not only are we looking at policies and procedures and what it is, you have to look at mechanisms. So, all right, so what are we using to secure our confidentiality and integrity and availability? First of all, you think about the city. Go back to the city wall again. So you have this giant wall, a firewall. Think about it like that. It's for your network. So the wall is preventing people from just getting in. All right. So a detection and recovery, auditing, intrusion detection, incident handling. So, okay, not only do you have a wall, but you have a gate and you have guards standing there saying, hey, somebody's coming. Or, hey, somebody just got in. So you're detecting that somebody's trying to get through your firewall. Somebody's trying to get through your city wall. And a lot of times, if you've got a guard like standing up on a high wall somewhere, they're just detecting, hey, this person just got in. This is the intrusion detection. They just got in. He's wearing a green shirt and he's got a beard and all this kind of good stuff. And he just got in. So he's able to alarm people within the network to say, hey, he just went this direction. I think the intrusion detection system, the IDS, is able to detect a intrusion and let administrators know that, hey, this person went through this way, they were coming from this IP address, and the soldiers on the inside, the administrators of the network, they can say, all right, let's shut down this little section. We think this is where he is. The network, they're going to shut down these computers because they think this is where the virus got in or the attacker got in, and let's find them, okay? But you got to have a certain amount of tolerance for practicality. You got to have these policies and procedures in place. You got to have a way to detect. But at the same time, you have to be practical about it. You have to have a certain amount of user ability to. It has. I don't want to say easy. It can't be easy, but it has to be user friendly for your users to be able to get in. There's, again, delicate balance. Layers of security, but delicate balance. Good prevention and detection both require good authentication as a foundation. You're going to hear me talk about two-factor authentication. Username and passwords, in my personal opinion, are just inadequate for this. When I say two-factor, let's say you enter in your username and password, but you also use a retinal scan or a fingerprint, or think about most people on their iPhones or tablets or something. You plug in a quick PIN number, but some people have set up two-factor authentication. They use a biometric like a thumbprint or something like that. So two-factor authentication is so important, and there are ways to bypass it, unfortunately. But again, path of least resistance. If you have two-factor authentication in place, and this other company over here doesn't, or think about it, if your city wall here, not only you're not only required to provide an ID, but you also have to provide a thumbprint. You know what? I'm going to go to this city on down the street here that doesn't make me do that. All right. So mechanisms. Prevention is more fundamental. Detection seeks to prevent by threat of punitive action. Detection requires that the audit trail be protected from alteration. So yes, absolutely. You want to try to keep people out. You want to say, hey, look, if you do this, these are the consequences of your actions. This is, we'll prosecute you. If you're an internal employee, we'll fire you. And you want to try to keep that trail, that audit trail, to be able to track what that attacker did, protected from alteration. So sometimes detection is the only option. Sometimes that, maybe you don't keep backup records. Maybe you don't, you just need to detect. You need to know all the different points that somebody can try to get into your city, try to get into your network. Accountability and proper use of authorized privileges. Someone's not trying to escalate their privileges. Modification of messages in network. So these are some of the mechanisms that we go through. Security by obscurity. Security by obscurity says that if we hide the inner workings of a system, it will be secure. No. Less and less applicable due to widespread vendor-independent open standards, widespread computer knowledge and expertise, widespread transfer of information. All right, so many people used to think that if you have a wireless network at home, you do not have to broadcast your SSID, the name of your network. You can actually, set it to not broadcast that. But as an attacker, it's not that hard to find. There are certain tools and devices that, I use on a daily basis that easily find those SSIDs that don't broadcast. And if I were an attacker, because of how easy it is to find those, well, this must have something really good on it because they're trying to hide it. So let me go after that one. So that's sort of kind of the mindset as an attacker. And I've worked on both sides of things. What's called the blue team. Blue team is trying to defend. The red team is trying to attack. That's a common phrase in IT. So just understand that I've worked on both sides of the blue team and red team. And if I see something that's trying to be hidden, I'm going to try to go after that because that looks like something that might be juicy. All right, security by legislation says that if we instruct our users on how to behave, we can secure our systems. Do not share passwords. Do not write down passwords. User awareness cooperation is important, but should not be the principal focus for achieving security. I wholeheartedly agree. Obviously, one of the basic things of this class is that I'm going to try to teach you some basic security awareness, some best practices. But this should not be the end-all of security. Layers. If nothing that I've learned when it comes to users is that statistically speaking, 20% of your users are going to continue to fall for the same thing over and over and over again. You can drill them. There's a company that has monthly tests of all their users, and somehow or another, every single year when my company comes in and we attempt to test, there's 20% of people that still fall for the same thing over and over and over again. So be aware that yes, security awareness is important. You want your people to know what's going on, but at the end of the day, this should not be the end all. Layered security. So perspectives on security. There is no silver bullet. I said this at the beginning. Absolute security does not exist. Okay? Using something that is modern, sort of kind of out in the day, just because you lock your doors at night does not mean someone's not going to break into your house. Security in most systems can be improved. Okay? Not only do you put a lock on your door, but you put an alarm system, and you put a really heavy door on there so nobody can just kick it open, and you put locks on your windows. Layers of security. Same thing in your network. Absolute security is impossible. Does not mean insecurity is acceptable. All right, so that doesn't mean that, because absolute security is impossible, I'm just not going to do anything. What's the point? Somebody's going to get in. Again, path of least resistance. An attacker will go after someone that doesn't secure their network as well as some other person. So keep that in mind. All right, kind of a lost thought here. Would this be your recommendation? All right, you know what? Forget it. There's just no way that I can achieve security. I'm just going to destroy my laptop. We're going to go back to pencils and paper, and we're just going to do it this way. No, of course not. This is not, but again, this class is about introducing you to concepts. We're putting in layers of security. What's out there, what types of attacks are out there, what someone can do, and what can I do to try to help my company achieve a better security face. So that's what this class is all about. That's it for this week. So think of it like this. So next week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a 5-question quiz. And that quiz will have questions from here, including the bonus word. So just go through the slides. And again, this is not going to be complicated. Here's the thing. Could you cheat? Of course you could. You could get the answers from somebody else, but you're doing yourself a disservice. Now, a lot of these questions, there will be a couple here that's going to be in the midterm and the final, so you're kind of doing yourself a disservice if you're getting the answers from somebody else now. Take the class, experience the hands-on activities, do it yourself. Again, could you do it? Of course you could, but I really want you to try to learn something from here. I really want you to be able to take something from this class. And I'm really hoping you can. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. All the classes will be posted once a week with the quiz. And again, the hands-on activities are going to come. I need to work on the midterm and the final, but as far as the registrar's office and how we're going to do that. But again, I'll try to post my office hours sometime either this week or next week, kind of let you know when I'm going to be in the office. Until then, you can email me any of your thoughts and concerns. All right. Thank you, and I will see everyone next week, and have a good day.